Why does Supreme Leader Snoke seemingly almost not wish to complete the training of Kylo Ren in The Force Awakens? Why does he wait until the destruction of the Starkiller base and defeat of Kylo at the hands of Rey to begin with completing Kylo's training at all? I believe we have the answer, and we must look at Snoke and the way he has constructed the First Order, as well as past events that may provide us with a solid, definitive answer to this question. Although we have limited information on Snoke, we are aware to some degree how he has chosen to structure the First Order. The First Order is a force that is spread wide throughout the unknown regions of space, and although many resources were dedicated to the construction of the Starkiller base, the numbers of the First Order are still widely unknown. The reasoning behind why this is very important. Snoke is someone who we know has detailed knowledge about the inner workings of the Empire, specifically its fall. This is evident, as he knew what exactly caused the victory above Endor on behalf of the rebels and Luke to occur, with a divided Darth Vader ultimately returning to the light and receiving redemption. A major flaw of the Empire as a whole were putting all its cards too close together. Many of the Empire's key losses throughout history have been a result of coordinated attacks on locations heavily valued to the Empire, and on top of all of this, having all the key players present as well. Examples in the films alone being the first Death Star and Grand Moff Tarkin, then in Return of the Jedi the second Death Star, Darth Vader, and the Emperor himself. And then following these events, the Empire being ambushed after largely regrouping on Jakku. The point is that Snoke has learned from the mistakes of past leaders. This is why he has spread out the resources of the First Order, colonizing potentially dozens of planets in the unknown regions, and although the overall numbers are likely far less than the Empire, the power is not all grouped together. Along with this, Snoke himself resides in a mobile command center, never remaining in one place for too long. Now we must examine what Snoke learned from the more personal side of the Empire's collapse. The biggest contributing factor to the Emperor's ultimate demise was trust. He simply trusted his apprentice Darth Vader too much, and while his focus was on Luke, he failed to realize the true danger was by his side. The Emperor overestimated his hold on Vader and underestimated the power of blood and family. This is a mistake the Supreme Leader is well aware of. In The Force Awakens, Kylo's biggest trial is bringing himself to kill his father, Han Solo. By doing this cements him under the thumb of Snoke, as he is able to do what his grandfather ultimately could not. Following this is when the Supreme Leader finally agrees to complete Kylo's training. Snoke feels the light within Kylo, and although he cites this as a reason for his immense power, it also poses a potential threat to him. If Kylo even retains the smallest amount of loyalty to his family, his potential to betray and kill Snoke remains. We do, however, know Kylo has received some training on behalf of Snoke by comments made by Kylo referring to Snoke's concern for him returning to the light. Even you, Master of the Knights of Ren, have never faced such a test. By the grace of your training, I will not be seduced. For the case of Snoke, Kylo even poses a greater threat to him than Vader did to Palpatine. Palpatine knew after Vader was crippled on Mustafar, he would never surpass him, and still chose to use him because he was still the best option he had at the time, later attempting to trade him in for Luke. The relationship between Kylo and Snoke is oddly switched, with Snoke being very powerful but also damaged and vulnerable, and Kylo being very powerful and holding huge potential, even by Snoke's own evaluation. It is where you are from, what you are made of, the dark side and the light. The finest sculptor cannot fashion a masterpiece from poor materials. He must have something pure, something strong, something unbreakable with which to work. Snoke is not as naive as Palpatine was. As well as learning from the tactical missteps of the Empire, he is also aware of the more personal ones. This is why Snoke's trials to Kylo involve him severing the connections ultimately his grandfather couldn't. Snoke is molding Kylo into something more sinister than even Darth Vader by making him confront and destroy his own family. Not only is Luke on his own a huge threat to Snoke, but he also represents the failures of the past, and with him forcing Kylo to eliminate his weaknesses, it gives him more control over Kylo, and his trust in him thus increases. Snoke is also not a Sith, as this was made evident. It almost appears as if Snoke is hoping to maintain himself, as the way of the Sith is for the apprentice to eventually kill the master and take their place as the Dark Lord. So to summarize, the reason Snoke refused to complete the training of Kylo is because he did not fully trust him and has learned from the mistakes of the past. Only after Kylo kills his own father does the Supreme Leader wish to complete his training. But now, I would like to talk about how Snoke doing this may ultimately be a mistake. When Kylo kills his father, he's expecting to feel the power of the dark side course through him and almost receive relief through dedicating himself fully to one course. But much to Kylo's surprise, he feels weak. Weaker than he has in a very long time. As a very brief side note, this feeling is also a big thing I see coming into play in the final duel that allowed Rey to best Kylo, as it may have been an even bigger contributing factor to her victory than even the bowcaster wound. The point is, by attempting to stomp out his connection to the light, he weakened himself in that moment, and Kylo's largest step into the dark may also have helped him take his first step back into the light, as the magnitude of his action weighs on him. So that is just my theory as to why Snoke was apprehensive about training Kylo in and before the events of The Force Awakens. I really hope that the reason is something similar to this, as it adds a lot of thought behind the Supreme Leader's plans and is something I see the very wise Snoke thinking through while swaying Ben to become Kylo. I also love the parallels it draws between Snoke and the Emperor, and Kylo and Vader, as it shows us Snoke has learned from the mistakes of the Emperor, while on the other hand, Kylo has failed to learn from the redemption of Vader. So go ahead and tell me what you think about this theory. I know it really isn't an earth-shattering race parents theory or something similar, but it's more thinking through the psychology and thought process of our characters. I hope you guys enjoyed, and please leave all insight and suggestions down below. May the Force be with you, and have a great day.